to the cloud? Well, we'll go through some basic steps, and this is what we've learned as we've gone through this multiple times now. One of the most important steps is to do an enterprise assessment. What do you have running? Where is it running? What type of hardware is it on? Is it sufficient for what we've got? Mapping out and getting a good understanding of the lay of the land is really one of the foundations to being able to successfully implement into the cloud. Workload assessment is also just as important. So this drills down from the enterprise view to the specific workload. How many resource or how much of the resources of this server is this particular workload, whether it's a database or an application or a web service, how much of the resources of this server are being consumed by this workload? Is it oversized? Is it undersized? What changes need to be made to accommodate it correctly? Cloud readiness assessment is also necessary. Some companies may not be ready to do a full jump into the cloud based on their current infrastructure needs. And so getting an understanding of what moving to the cloud would mean for your company is also, and making any changes that might be necessary is also a very important step in this. Provider selection, once you've got your understanding of what is running, what the fingerprint of the workload is, how ready your company is, now it's time to start looking at, okay, so which provider fits the needs of my organization? After that, you can start doing the architecture, sketching out the networks, where they are, which subnets are public, which are private, which VMs or bare metal servers would fit the workloads that you want to move, and sketching that environment out completely before you begin building anything. And then you actually have the implementation phase where you begin to put into place the things that you've architected. So that's a successful roadmap to the cloud. And we'll revisit this in a little bit whenever we take a look at some of the capabilities that we have. We've learned a few lessons along the way that we wanted to share with you. First of all, it's important to really understand before you even begin the enterprise assessment what your goal is. Am I really trying to move everything into the cloud? Am I only trying to move the best candidates into the cloud? Are there certain aspects of my business that I want in the cloud and others that I want to retain on premise? Also, am I creating a new footprint in the cloud, or do I currently have a provider that I'm working with that may accommodate the workloads that we've got that we want to move to the cloud? So that's an important question to answer. What am I really trying to get to in the end? Not all workloads are good candidates, and we can discuss that later, but there are some workloads due to versions. Some things are just very old. They won't work in the cloud unless they're upgraded. Other considerations might include licensing considerations. And then also, not all providers fit all workloads. There are some capabilities in each of these providers that make a better fit for specific types of workloads. And one of the things, the big things that we've learned, we've come into projects where they have attempted to start a cloud implementation, but because their core business isn't cloud implementations, it gets lost in the shuffle. Sometimes it's hard to keep your IT staff focused on a cloud implementation when you've got the daily grind of things that need to be done from day to day. So assistance is often needed for either all or some of the phases to assess what you've got, to plan that, and then to actually perform the move itself. Which cloud provider should you choose? This is probably the big question, and there are a lot of answers to it, which we won't get to all of them, but just a few thoughts. Do you already have a current provider? Many companies have at least a small footprint in the cloud. So is that provider someone that can accommodate the needs that you have once you've done your enterprise mapping? Is there a corporate mandate to use a specific provider because of partnerships or negotiations that may have happened in the past? It could be that your choices are limited whenever it comes to choosing a cloud provider. So if you're locked into one provider, how can you leverage what they already have in order to fit the workloads that you've identified to move to the cloud? What type of workloads are moving? Are they database specific? Are they applications? Are they web services, mail services? Sometimes this helps narrow down the choice of the provider that you want to look into more deeply. And what type of applications are moving? Very similar question. Some applications work really well in some providers, and others need a little bit of tweaking and maybe a little more maintenance to be able to work properly. And then what are the licensing considerations? This is actually kind of a big one because some cloud providers license products differently based on what it is. Just a very brief example, Oracle databases, if you have a license for an Oracle database and you license 4 CPUs, you can move that to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and retain that full 4 CPU utilization. However, Oracle has set it up so that their licensing works differently in other cloud providers. You may end up with half of the CPUs available to you based on your current licensing. And that's part of where we can help you navigate that territory to see, okay, what impact would moving to the cloud have on my current licensing situation? And is infrastructure as a service or platform as a service preferred? Do you want bare metal VM type servers that you install everything, maintain everything yourself, and have full administrative rights? Or is this perhaps a workload that you could use in platform as a service, which is more of a canned, already configured, lower administrative work needed type of a solution? So all of these are big questions that can help move you in the direction of choosing a cloud provider that fits your workload and also answers these questions adequately for your organization. There are some generic rules of thumb that many people think are good guides to being able to pick cloud providers. For instance, some people might say, well, if it's an Oracle database or application, then it probably should go in the Oracle cloud. Or because AWS is more mature and obviously very global, maybe this is the right solution for us. Or in Google, excuse me, Google Cloud Services, we have a lot of containerized or Kubernetes type applications. Maybe Google is the right solution since they're containerized heavy. Azure, maybe that's the right choice if I've got a Microsoft database and application workload. These are things that people might think are good guides to being able to make that decision. But one thing that we've seen repeatedly is that the solution is not locked into specific providers. In other words, just because it's an Oracle database or application doesn't necessarily mean that Oracle's the right fit. We have multiple clients that are running their Oracle databases and applications in other cloud providers. We have others who have no Oracle applications or databases, and yet they've selected Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as their provider. So there really isn't a good rule of thumb. It is very tailored to your organization whenever it comes to making that selection for a provider. So how do you get there once you've made your selection? We, we went through a very brief overview of a roadmap that would get you to the cloud. This is a little more detailed to that. We like to do, first off, a cloud readiness assessment. How prepared is your organization to be able to accommodate a cloud footprint? Do you have the bandwidth or the capability to connect your current data center to a cloud provider, either through a VPN tunnel or through a dedicated line such as Fast Connect with Oracle? After that, we can perform the enterprise mapping. What assets do you have? Where are they running? What do they run? Are some of these things that can be put together, consolidated onto one server? Do you need to split some workloads into separate servers? That comes from the workload fingerprint that we do. We can take a look at the resources being consumed and then help you sort of do that Tetris-like fit into the cloud provider that works for you. Workload selection, which workloads are really good candidates for this? As mentioned before, not all workloads are going to fit into a cloud provider, and we can help you discern that. And then assessing the best fit for the provider. Which of the ones on the list really work? After that, you can begin your architecture, your implementation, do the testing, any remediation that needs to be done once you've got your test servers up, refresh the data, and then finally your cutover. So this is a full roadmap that gets you to the cloud. And this is where Centroid can fit in to help with this. Some of the technologies or methods that we've used to get data and applications into the cloud, Lift and shift is a really nice capability for some applications. You can literally pick up, for instance, an Oracle EBS application as is and put it into a machine in the cloud. We've got technologies that help do that. Could be a data migration, an old database that you've got on-prem that we create a new database for and then migrate that data into it and then work with you through whatever connectivity issues are necessary for your end users, your applications, and things like that. And then finally, in some cases, it would take a brand new install or an upgrade of a current application in order to work properly in the cloud. These are all tools that we use along the way in working through that roadmap with you. So drilling down a little further into what Centroid System does, we have three core services that we offer: consulting, business transformation, and cloud managed services. All three of these pillars really come into play whenever it comes to creating a successful roadmap to the cloud. We can meet with you, we can work with you through the process of enterprise mapping and workload fingerprinting. If there's a need to change or transform a business process, we can work with you through that, as well as actually getting you to the cloud and then helping you to manage that afterwards. Focusing on the cloud piece of that itself, here are some of the services that we offer whenever it comes to the cloud managed piece of that. And I won't go into all of these, but if you're just sort of putting your toe in the water and thinking about, well, maybe I need to explore cloud options, we have some very easy entry points to the cloud. For instance, disaster recovery as a service is a very popular one, where if you've got an application or a database that's mission critical and you don't already have a DR solution, well, it could be a good candidate to put into the cloud. And we can help you work through creating that, creating the fallback procedures and switchover procedures, and having it set up so that now you've got a solid DR solution for a mission critical application. And that's just an easy entry point into the cloud. Once you see how it operates, how simply you can put new assets into the cloud, and you've got that infrastructure built in the network, then you can begin to move other assets up there as well. Our three-step process includes helping you plan out your move to the cloud, finding the best fit, the best provider for the requirements that you have, actually performing the move. And as I mentioned before, we have a global workforce that can work 24/7. So even if you've got things that require zero downtime, we have not only the technology, but the very experienced personnel that can help utilize that so that you can move quickly into the cloud. And then afterwards, if you need help or just want somebody to completely manage that cloud footprint for you, we also offer our managed services. We've put these into four different categories, and these are just easy name tags for you to use if you'd like to request more information about a particular phase of this. Cloud Advisor is that initial assessment. Cloud Builder is actually creating that footprint. Cloud Mover is migrating applications and data. And Cloud Manager is our managed services. So if there's a specific part of these four things that you would like to have more information about, you can just use these names and we'll know how to get you the right information. Centroid, as I mentioned before, has been around for a while. We have a global workforce. It's very experienced too. We get people that are certified in cloud technologies and in the specific ones that we find leading the field today. We've worked with a lot of companies in a lot of different markets, big name companies too. So we're not locked into one specific market type when it comes to providing or creating solutions with you. We've worked with quite a few companies, and we've got some pretty big names that have been very happy with their cloud implementations. And some of this is very reusable knowledge that we can work with you to be able to get you the right solution to the end goal that you've got. So that's just a really quick shot of information. I know if you would like more information, I'm going to leave this up on the screen as we go through sort of a Q&A. I've also got with me on the call our lead cloud architect, Navdeep Saini, as well as one of our managing partners, Ajay Arora, who can help answer the questions that you might have. So, Mary, I'd like to open it up and see if there's any questions that you'd like to go with.
Okay, yes, we have had a couple that have come in. The first one, Michael, is how do you perform the enterprise and workload assessment?
So we have a tool that we use that actually helps to scour your landscape to be able to find things. And it's kind of funny because sometimes there's sort of misplaced servers or servers that nobody actually knew were still running. And this tool helps us identify those. So we take a range of IP addresses, we let the tool run. It will bring back information regarding the operating system, the applications that are running on it, the connections that it has to other servers running. And then we can take that information and start doing a resource profile for each workload. How much memory, disk space, CPU is this using during peak periods? Does it fit the server that it's on? Do I need to find an equivalent, or do I need to upsize it or maybe downscale? So the tool that we use helps us to just pluck all that out, in addition to working with you through interviews, through getting to know your staff and what they know of the lay of the land.
Okay, great, great. And if any of you would like to ask a question of Michael, you can use the chat feature at the bottom and send those directly to me. We did have another one that came in. What are some examples of workloads that don't fit into the cloud?
One example that I can think of, we work with a security company that produces the door access cards, and those are heavily encrypted, and they use actual hardware encryption. They've got specific machines that they use for that. It took us quite a while to come up with a solution, which was that we would need to actually get machines like that into a data center that a cloud provider already has. So we couldn't really move the workload itself, but we could help provide a solution to that. That's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know, Nav or Ajay, are there any others that you can think of that are not good candidates for a move?
The one thing, I mean, you already, Michael, you already brought up the HSMs, and that's where the adjacent cloud architecture comes into play. But any application where you actually want to separate out the application components into on-prem or multi-cloud, you just need to be very, very careful about latency. And that's where some of the applications, like I'm dealing with one of the customers whose applications are running on HPUX and the database is on Linux, and they want to move to a cloud without moving the applications. In that case, we'll be very, very careful to understand the latency between the on-prem and the cloud provider you're going with to see whether this is a good fit or not. And the thirdly is, I'll let Nav also chime in. Thirdly is the overall any kind of regulatory compliances which we have to follow through. Just make sure that the cloud provider supports that compliance ratios.
Yeah, and regulatory compliance is a big ticket in there for the workloads that sometimes we can't move because of the compliance reasons. You can't get them out of your particular set of data centers that you have. That one, and then there has been some unique cases also. Besides that, some outliers. We had a unique case where customer was using a particular type of networking, like multicasting. So not all cloud providers support that, right? So that was another case we kind of struggled. What would be the right fit for them? There are some custom solutions that you can build on top of the cloud providers to do it, but sometimes you end up with complex architecture. You might as well just not move them. So that could be another possible cases where it's not a good fit to move to cloud.
Michael, back to you.
Okay, Mary, any other questions?
Okay, that looks like all the questions. If there is nothing else that we have here, I do want to thank you all for joining us again. Of course, you can contact me. My email address is there. It's mary.burcham@centroid.com. We will also be sending out a copy of this presentation to you, and the recording should be uploaded on our website probably by the end of the week. So again, if there's no other questions, we want to thank you. We appreciate your time. We know it's valuable, and we'll talk with you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary. Great job, Michael.